All right, before we get really going on this program, and Ryan Wilson of CBS Sports is going to join us in just a little bit. We won't ask him about the Panthers because I've got Tim Donnelly in here. You may know Tim from the afternoon show, which follows me here on 99.9 The Fan in Raleigh, or you know him from the Panthers Playbook podcast.
There you go. Which, by the way, Panthers Camp Confidential, which is their YouTube, like their version of Hard Knocks. If you listen closely, you hear Panthers Playbook clips in there.
Really?
Yeah, you'll recognize Dennis Cox and Chris Lee, who are both on the
What about you?
Panthers Playbook podcast. I'm 7 minutes of it through when we recorded this, so I haven't heard me yet. But
okay,
they're probably saving that for the end. But the Panthers Playbook podcast, or they're just picking the guys that I co-host the pod with. But yeah, they're all over it. So it's the Panthers are listening to us, which I think is kind of cool.
That is very good. They actually used me for when they made a couple of acquisitions during the right away during the off season. And they just had me making like noises. Wow! Oh, like it. Seriously, that's what they used to me.
That's the secret sauce.
Perfect.
That's why you are who you are.
That's as in depth as I get. Tim Donnelly's here. All right, let me. Like, you're a quarterback, so I'm going to ask you about Bryce Young in a second.
Good.
But the first two preseason games have not been pretty. Been not pretty.
That is a very nice way to put it.
They have not been good for, I think, myriad of reasons. So if you had one thing that jumps out at you that concerning, maybe it's hard to put too much stock in anything in the preseason, but what has concerned you?
The number one thing for me is the communication on the offensive line, which is, everyone wants to say, oh, it's preseason, it doesn't matter. It's preseason, it doesn't matter. This one I think actually matters a little bit more because, like Ike Ekwonu and whoever's playing guard next to him haven't been communicating well.
Right.
Ike Ekwonu being the left tackle, and they've gotten Bryce Young hit a bunch of times. Yeah. And then after the game, Frank Reich and whoever the offensive staff is will tell us, well, the play calling's been vanilla, right? Oh, we're not trying to show anything. It's been vanilla. And I'm going, well, if it's vanilla, then everybody should know exactly what they're going to have to do, right?
Right.
It's if the play is unsuccessful, you can say, well, we didn't want to show anything. If there's a miscommunication and you say it's vanilla, it's like, okay, so we're messing up a vanilla playbook. What are we going to do when we get to use that example, like, Rocky Road with sprinkles? We can't get vanilla right. So the communication up front, and I know Corbett's been out, but I mean,
that's on the other side.
That's
at right guard.
And if one guy up front gets hurt, like it's football, you're not going to play every game with all five starting linemen.
If one guy
messes all of that up, then you're in kind of big problems, big trouble. So the communication up front is the thing that's really getting me.
Here's what, because that was my first concern. I have two major concerns. That was my first one, because it's not just communication. If Kayvon Thibodeau is the only player lined up wide of you and your Ike Ekwonu, there should never be a situation where you are looking inside.
It's common sense, too.
What is that?
Yes. And it was a misheard call is what we heard.
Oh, okay.
Which you need to hit a you sure, right? Like you're calling for me to come down. I know there's nobody outside me. And even if you think like, oh, a running back's behind me and maybe you think a running back one-on-one with Kayvon Thibodeau?
Not a good recipe.
That's where Ike Ekwonu has to look back at Bryce Young and go, you sure? You sure? Like, before I pinch down here and help the guard and leave Kayvon Thibodeau unblocked, let's just be aware that he's coming, right? And obviously all that would be in code or sometimes just hand signals. But there needs to be like the tap your helmet, like we're all on board with this. This seems like a bad idea.
And even when he's known his assignment, it hasn't gone well because 2 plays later, he
just got beat.
Thibodeau just went right around him. He knew what he was supposed to do. Look, Thibodeau can be an elite player. It's why the Giants drafted him high. It's why everybody thought he was going to be a great player. And the Jets' defensive front, even though they weren't playing a lot of their starters, the Jets probably have one of the top 2 or 3 defensive fronts as a unit, not just the stars, but the guys behind the stars. So those are 2 difficult tests for an offensive line that is still trying to figure it out, even though they kind of bring back most of what they had a year ago.
And that's, first of all, getting beat one-on-one, which he did by Thibodeau. You saw Bozeman getting bullied by Dexter Lawrence, which, he's a local guy. He's a monster. That's why they paid him $900 million, whatever they paid him.
Wow.
But like that in the preseason, I kind of like, I can forgive that, right? You're getting you haven't been punched in the chest in a while. Like you're getting used to that. That's why the missed assignments are so confusing to me. But if you look at you brought it up, right? They returned most of the offense or offensive line, and they were solid last year. Like they weren't great. They were middle of the pack, which I would take. Like if you signed me up for middle of the pack this year right now.
13th best offensive line in football.
I'm all over it. And I'm looking at Bryce Young and going, that's enough for you to learn. That's enough for you to develop. That's you'll learn how to deal with pressure because they won't block everything. You'll learn how to have a nice clean pocket. It's the 13th. I would love 26th. I'm terrified of what that means. And through two, and again, it's preseason, so grain of salt, handful of salt, whatever you want to say. They've looked more 26th than 13th.
Tim Donnelly from The Drive. They'll follow us here if you're listening on 99.9 The Fan in Raleigh. The other thing that has concerned me, and I know injuries play a part, I know pass rush plays a part, but I thought the defense really made Daniel Jones look like Dan Marino in the game against the Giants last Friday. I don't know that the Lions are playing a lot of their starters in the final preseason game, so I don't know what we take out of this. And I know Carolina's going to play their starters, but boy, Daniel Jones' stat line was pretty gaudy, and none of their receivers were anything other than wide open.
And tight ends and everybody. I think there's a lot being put on Brian Burns and Justin Houston right now because they weren't out there.
Right.
And, nor
was Derek Brown, I think, right?
Yep, correct. There's two ways to make a receiver not open, right? Either guard him or put the quarterback on his back before they can get open. I think there's going to be points given up this year, especially if guys like Dante Jackson and J.C. Horn can't stay healthy. And they brought in, Troy Hill, who's, I don't know.
Von Bell's good. I like Von Bell.
I like Von Bell. I love
Jeremy Chin.
I love Jeremy Chin.
Yeah.
So they have some players, but the games where Brian Burns specifically isn't winning his one-on-one a lot, I think there could be some strain on the back end there. I love their off-ball linebackers too. Like there's a lot that I like about that defense. It's just everything kind of starts with Brian Burns being better than whoever he lines up across. So, if the other team has a stud tackle, it could be a long day.
One more thing before I let Tim Donnelly go. By the way, Panthers playbook. Mm-hmm. The next episode will drop after the game tonight or tomorrow.
Yes, it'll be after the game. You'll have it for the weekend, so it'll be Saturday morning, whatever that is. I
have lawns to mow.
Oh,
so
there you go.
Yeah,
I have lawns to mow also.
It's one lawn, but it's like four.
We can have yard conversations another time.
Let's do that.
All about it.
We'll whip at our John Deeres. Here's the other thing that I think that. This is why fans, I think, are mad. Not mad, but frustrated. Is that they see the first pick in the draft, quarterback that they're now convinced that they love, and they should. I think Bryce is going to be great. But the expectations with an all-star coaching staff, which I think is an accurate portrayal of this group.
Correct. Very much so.
And young players on defense and some young talent on offense. They're like, now's the time where we get back to being good again. So they want it to be. They almost want the finished product well before we can get the finished product.
This season, and I've said this from the moment they traded up, right? And it wasn't even the moment they drafted Bryce Young. This season is a success if Bryce Young looks like a franchise quarterback. The win-loss record is less important because you'll win a lot of games with a franchise quarterback over 15 years. The problem is the things that are not problem, but the challenge is. The things that are best for developing a young quarterback also happen to be the things that good teams do, right? Like I was saying this yesterday. How is Bryce Young going to learn how to find an open receiver if all the receivers are hurt and no one's open, right? He's just going to be going like number one option, number two option, number three option, back to number one. Still, it's like he's not learning how to find the guy or throw the guy open. Same is true with the offensive line, right? How is he going to learn how to go through a progression like I just described if he has 1.5 seconds to do it?
Yep.
So, winning is protecting your quarterback and getting open and opening holes in the run game. Developing a young quarterback is protecting your quarterback, getting open, right, opening holes in the run game. So they got to figure out a lot of stuff around him in order for him to develop as much as he possibly can. And that's the goal. That's the entire goal of the season. It just looks a lot like winning football.
I think what they're going to end up doing is leaning into their hashtag keep pounding. I think they're going to be a running team again. And that's okay if you can do that successfully and then do play action and make some plays. But I don't see a great offense just yet.
And they're what, ninth in waivers? I think somewhere right now there's a team with 4 good running backs that wants to keep 3, and they're gonna.
How about the Jets who have 5 good running backs?
How about Michael Carter coming back into the area?
Or
Bam Knight coming
Bam
back
Knight.
into the area.
One or both of them, because Israel Abanaconda has opened up eyes. Pittsburgh running backs with the Jets? Get out of here, Curtis Martin all over again. So, yeah, Pitt running backs, man, they're quietly good.
Because obviously, I mean, there's some guys I like Miles Sanders. Hopefully he stays healthy, but you can't trust that guy to stay healthy. Chuba Hubbard, when running the ball, is good, not as great in pass protection.
Blackshear's good?
Blackshear's, as a pass catcher, I love.
Yep.
If you go back to his time at Virginia Tech in the ACC, he's got wide receiver skills, little less between the tackles. So if you can get somebody that can do maybe fill Miles Sanders' role if he goes down more completely, I think that the waiver situation might work out there. But I think they lean on the run game also.
That's Tim Donnelly. The Drive, 3 to 6, right here on 99.9 The Fan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've taken so much. You're like a great left tackle.
Oh, I appreciate that.
You've taken a lot of burden off me. Ryan Wilson of CBS Sports on the other games next.